When most people think about muscle loss, they imagine bodybuilders getting smaller after they stop training or older adults becoming frail as the years go by. But the truth is, muscle loss, what scientists call sarcopenia, starts far earlier than most people realize. In fact, starting in your late 20s or early 30s, you begin losing muscle fiber quality and strength, even if your scale weight doesn't change. By age 40, that process speeds up. By age 60, it accelerates dramatically. The good news is this isn't a slow, irreversible slide. In the last 5 years, research has shown that just a couple of very specific vitamins, taken in the right way, can dramatically slow or even reverse muscle breakdown in as little as 2 weeks. These nutrients don't require a prescription, they're inexpensive, and they don't involve taking megadoses or complicated stacks of supplements. But before we get into the exact vitamins, let's take a moment to understand why muscles weaken and shrink in the first place. It's not simply because you're not lifting weights. It's deeper than that, cellular, metabolic, even neurological. Understanding this will make the solution far more powerful. Muscle loss is something most people associate with aging or extreme inactivity, but it actually begins far earlier than most of us realize. Starting as early as your late 20s or early 30s, your muscle fibers undergo subtle changes that make them less efficient, less dense, and less responsive to normal activity. This process is so gradual at first that you don't notice it, because the overall size of your muscles might not seem to shrink right away. You might even weigh the same on the scale, but the composition of your body is shifting. More fat mass, less muscle mass, and that shift affects everything from strength and coordination to metabolism and long-term health. The real issue is that once this decline begins, it tends to accelerate over time, and by the time you hit your 40s or 50s, the rate of muscle loss is faster and harder to ignore. This isn't just a cosmetic problem. Muscle is a critical metabolic organ. It stores glucose, burns fat, and acts as a reservoir of amino acids your body needs for repair. When you start losing muscle, you don't just get weaker. You become more prone to fatigue, joint instability, poor posture, and a slower metabolism, which makes it easier to gain fat. Your risk of insulin resistance, bone fractures, and even cognitive decline rises because muscle health is tightly linked to brain function, circulation, and hormone balance. Part of what drives this early loss is a drop in anabolic signaling inside your cells. Hormones like testosterone growth hormone and IGF-1 naturally decline as you age. But even before these hormones drop, your muscle fibers start becoming resistant to their effects. The nerves that activate muscle fibers also begin to lose efficiency, meaning fewer fibers are stimulated during everyday movements, which leads the unused fibers to shrink or die off. Add to this the fact that many people sit for hours at a time, eat inconsistent diets, and spend little time in natural sunlight, and you have the perfect recipe for gradual but persistent muscle decline. Even people who train regularly can experience early muscle loss if they fail to supply their bodies with the right nutrients or recovery signals. Mitochondria, the energy factories inside muscle cells, also become less efficient over time, producing more oxidative stress and less energy. This makes it harder for your muscles to repair themselves after even minor damage from daily activities, not just exercise. Chronic low-grade inflammation, which is common with stress, poor diet, or lack of sleep, also erodes muscle tissue silently in the background. All of this means that muscle loss is not something that suddenly appears when you get old. It's a slow, moving process that starts while you still feel young, long before you notice any real weakness. The reason it catches people by surprise is that it hides behind other changes. You may think you're just tired from work or stress, or that your genes fit differently because of a little weight gain, but in reality, your muscles are already shifting into a less efficient state. If nothing is done to stop it, that early shift becomes sarcopenia later in life, the condition where muscle mass and strength are so low that even simple tasks become difficult. But it doesn't take decades for this to matter. Even in your 30s and 40s, losing just a few percent of muscle can decrease your overall power and balance, leading to small aches, slower reflexes, and an increased risk of injuries during normal activities. Understanding this timeline is crucial because it shows why waiting until you're older to deal with it is a mistake. Muscle preservation is a lifelong effort, and the earlier you act to maintain it, the better your long-term outcome will be. This is why researchers are paying so much attention to strategies that can halt or reverse muscle loss at the cellular level rather than only focusing on workouts or high-protein diets. Vitamin D3 plays a far more powerful role in muscle health than most people realize, going far beyond its usual reputation as the bone vitamin. It behaves more like a hormone than a typical vitamin, influencing a wide range of systems throughout the body. Nearly every muscle cell has receptors for vitamin D, which means that when your levels are low, your muscle fibers are essentially operating with the lights dimmed. One of its most critical functions is enhancing protein synthesis within muscle tissue. Your muscles are constantly breaking down old proteins and building new ones, but this process only works efficiently when the internal machinery of the cell is fully activated. Vitamin D3 stimulates that machinery, helping muscle fibers convert dietary amino acids into the structural proteins they need to grow, repair, and maintain strength. Another key role is improving the way your nerves communicate with your muscles. When you move, your brain sends electrical signals down motor neurons that tell muscle fibers to contract. If this communication is weak or delayed, your muscles won't fire properly, and strength declines even if the muscle size looks unchanged. Adequate vitamin D3 makes these nerve-muscle connections more responsive, so every movement feels sharper, faster, and more coordinated. On top of this, vitamin D3 directly supports healthy hormone levels. Research shows it can boost testosterone and IGF-1 activity, which are both vital for muscle maintenance in men and women. When these hormones are functioning optimally, your body is primed to repair tissue after training, recover faster, and prevent the slow erosion of muscle that occurs when hormonal signaling is weak. The problem is that deficiency is far more common than most people think. Because modern life keeps many people indoors for most of the day, and sunscreen, while important for protecting skin, blocks the UV rays that trigger vitamin D production. Even young, active adults often have chronically low levels, living in urban areas, working in offices, or simply avoiding the sun to stay cool or prevent sunburn all contribute to widespread deficiency. Even athletes who train outside can have low vitamin D levels depending on latitude, season, and skin tone. The consequences show up subtly at first, feeling weaker despite consistent training, slower recovery after workouts, frequent muscle cramps, or unexplained fatigue. Over time, chronic deficiency sets the stage for accelerated muscle breakdown, increased risk of injury, and greater susceptibility to inflammation. Clinical studies have demonstrated that correcting low vitamin D levels can produce measurable improvements in muscle function even without changing diet or exercise. Older adults given adequate supplementation showed stronger grip strength, better balance, and improved walking speed. Younger adults experienced enhanced recovery and less muscle soreness after intense training. These effects are not just theoretical, they show how a simple nutrient can directly impact the way muscle tissue behaves on a day-to-day basis by supporting protein synthesis, improving nerve-muscle communication, and strengthening the body's anabolic hormone signaling. Vitamin D3 creates the internal environment muscles need to thrive rather than waste away. Because these changes are happening at a cellular level, the improvements can start to appear quickly, sometimes in just a few weeks, which makes maintaining optimal vitamin D levels one of the most effective and accessible strategies for preserving muscle health throughout life. Vitamin K2 is one of the most overlooked nutrients when it comes to muscle health, even though its impact on cellular energy and calcium management makes it indispensable. While many people associate vitamin K only with blood clotting, vitamin K2 is a completely different form that operates in tissues throughout the body, including your muscles. One of its main roles is directing calcium to where it actually belongs. When calcium intake is high but vitamin K2 is lacking, calcium can end up in the wrong places, such as arteries and soft tissues, rather than being deposited into bones and utilized by muscles. By activating specific proteins, vitamin K2 ensures that calcium is properly shuttled into bones for strength and into muscle cells for optimal contraction. But the benefits for muscle go even further. Inside every muscle cell, mitochondria act as power plants that generate the energy needed for movement, repair, and endurance. As we age, these mitochondria tend to become less efficient, leading to reduced muscle stamina and slower recovery. Vitamin K2 has been shown to enhance mitochondrial efficiency, meaning your muscle fibers can produce more energy while generating less oxidative stress. This is crucial because oxidative stress is a major factor in muscle fatigue and breakdown over time. By reducing that stress, K2 helps preserve the integrity of muscle proteins and prevents the silent degradation that leads to weakness. Another significant aspect of vitamin K2 is its ability to improve microcirculation. Healthy blood flow ensures that muscles receive a steady supply of oxygen and nutrients during both activity and recovery. K2 helps maintain flexible, unclogged blood vessels, which is essential not just for heart health but for nourishing every muscle fiber. Without adequate blood flow, even well-trained muscles cannot perform at their peak, and the process of rebuilding after exercise is compromised. Additionally, vitamin K2 activates proteins inside muscle tissue that regulate glucose utilization and fat metabolism, making muscle fibers more metabolically youthful. Muscles with better metabolic flexibility can burn fuel more efficiently and resist damage during periods of stress, whether that's heavy training, illness, or simply the wear and tear of daily life. Unlike many other nutrients, vitamin K2 is not widely available in a standard diet. It is found in fermented foods like natto, certain cheeses, egg yolks, and grass-fed animal products, but most people do not consume these regularly. As a result, deficiency is widespread even among those who believe they are eating well. Without enough K2, even taking plenty of calcium or vitamin D3 may not fully protect muscle and bone because the signaling proteins that guide calcium are inactive. This is why researchers emphasize that vitamin K2 works in synergy with vitamin D3 rather than in isolation. While vitamin D3 helps your body absorb calcium and supports anabolic signaling, vitamin K2 makes sure that calcium is properly deposited in muscle and bone tissue rather than causing harmful calcification elsewhere. Clinical findings reveal that restoring vitamin K2 levels produces rapid, measurable changes. People taking K2 supplements have demonstrated improved muscle function, greater endurance, and better recovery after periods of immobility. Studies in older adults show that adequate K2 intake improves walking speed, balance, and overall physical performance, key markers of healthy muscle aging. Even in younger individuals, K2 supplementation has been linked to improved athletic efficiency and reduced markers of muscle stress after intense training. This nutrient doesn't add bulk on its own, but it upgrades the internal operating system of muscle cells so they function more like they did when you were younger. By improving energy output, reducing oxidative damage, and keeping calcium under precise control, vitamin K2 creates an environment in which muscles can resist breakdown, recover faster, and stay strong even under metabolic or physical stress. When vitamin D3 and vitamin K2 two are combined, they create a powerful synergy that can halt or even reverse muscle breakdown in remarkably short periods of time. While each vitamin supports muscle health individually, together they address multiple cellular mechanisms at once, producing results that are both faster and more profound than either nutrient can achieve alone. Vitamin D3 increases calcium absorption and enhances anabolic signaling inside muscle cells, telling them to repair and grow. Vitamin K2 ensures that the calcium drawn into the body by vitamin D3 is deposited in the correct places, bones and muscles, while preventing harmful calcification in soft tissues and arteries. This coordination is crucial because unbalanced vitamin D supplementation without sufficient K2 can lead to calcium being misdirected, which not only undermines muscle health, but also poses long-term cardiovascular risks. By pairing these two nutrients, you maximize their positive effects and avoid potential drawbacks. Recent clinical studies have shown that correcting deficiencies in both D3 and K2 simultaneously can produce measurable improvements in muscle function in as little as 10 to 14 days. Participants in these studies who had low baseline levels of these vitamins experienced rapid increases in muscle fiber quality, strength, and coordination, even without major changes to exercise or diet. Blood markers of muscle breakdown declined, indicating that the body was shifting from a catabolic state where muscle tissue is being eroded to an anabolic state where repair and rebuilding dominate. In older adults, this combination improved balance and reduced fall risk, which is one of the most important indicators of healthy muscle aging. In younger adults, athletes, and those recovering from injury, the same combination accelerated recovery, reduced soreness, and enhanced overall physical performance. What makes this approach so effective is that it works at the cellular and metabolic level, rather than only relying on external factors like training intensity or protein intake. Muscle preservation is fundamentally about signaling. When your body senses that muscles are valuable and necessary, it invests energy and resources into maintaining them. Vitamin D3 sends that signal by turning on genes involved in protein synthesis and improving nerve-muscle communication. Vitamin K2 supports the energy production and structural integrity inside the fibers so that these repair signals can be fully executed. Together, they ensure that muscle tissue not only stays intact, but also remains functional, strong, and resilient under stress. This doesn't mean these vitamins replace exercise or good nutrition, but it does mean they correct one of the most common and damaging hidden deficiencies that quietly erode muscle mass year after year. Many people who train hard and eat well still experience unexplained weakness or slower recovery because the internal nutrient environment isn't optimized. Once D3 and K2 levels are restored to healthy ranges, the body becomes much more responsive to physical activity, meaning that every workout and every gram of protein is put to better use. Even for those who are temporarily unable to train, such as during injury recovery or illness, these vitamins help prevent rapid muscle loss during periods of inactivity, making rehabilitation faster and more effective once normal movement resumes. Because the improvements can happen quickly, people often notice subtle but meaningful changes in how their body feels within 2 weeks. Movements become easier, fatigue decreases, and strength returns more quickly after exertion. This rapid turnaround is not because these vitamins are building new muscle mass instantly, but because they are stopping unnecessary breakdown and restoring the body's ability to repair itself efficiently. Over longer periods, consistent supplementation builds on this foundation, preserving muscle size, quality, and function well into later life. The combination of D3 and K2 essentially sends a clear and powerful message to your muscle tissue: stay strong, stay active, stay alive. Proper dosing of vitamin D3 and vitamin K2 is critical because taking too little will fail to correct deficiencies, while taking too much can create imbalances that interfere with other systems in the body. Vitamin D3 is typically needed in amounts far higher than the minimal values listed on standard nutrition labels because those recommendations are designed only to prevent severe deficiency symptoms like rickets, not to optimize muscle function. For most adults, an intake of around 2,000 to 5,000 MIU per day is appropriate, though the exact amount depends on body weight, skin pigmentation, age, latitude, and how much sun exposure you get. People who spend very little time outdoors or live in northern climates may require the higher end of that range, while those who work outside might need less. The best way to know your personal requirement is to measure your blood levels of vitamin D. Optimal levels for muscle health tend to fall in the range of 40 to 60 ng/ml. Since vitamin D3 is fat soluble, it should always be taken with a meal that contains some dietary fat to ensure proper absorption. Vitamin K2 dosing is equally important. Unlike vitamin D3, which has extensive public awareness, K2 is less familiar. So many people take it inconsistently or not at all. The most studied forms are MK7, MK4. A typical supplemental intake is between 100 and 200 micrograms per day, though higher dietary intakes from natural sources like natto, certain cheeses, egg yolks, or grass-fed meats can contribute significantly. Like D3, K2 is fat soluble, so it also needs to be taken with food for full absorption. Because these two vitamins work together, taking them at the same time is convenient and ensures both are available in the body simultaneously. Pairing them with magnesium and zinc is also beneficial because these minerals are required for vitamin D metabolism and utilization, and deficiencies in these minerals are also common. The goal is not to take massive doses in hopes of faster results. Excessive vitamin D can raise calcium levels too high if K2 intake is inadequate, leading to calcium deposits in soft tissues rather than in bones and muscles where they belong. Similarly, there's no need to megadose vitamin K2. as even moderate amounts are highly effective when combined with proper D3 intake. What matters most is consistency, because these nutrients accumulate in the body gradually and produce steady improvements rather than sudden spikes. Blood testing for vitamin D provides the clearest picture of whether your intake is sufficient, and while there isn't a widely available standard blood test for K2 status, maintaining a regular dietary or supplemental source is usually enough to cover your needs. When proper dosing is achieved, studies show noticeable improvements in muscle strength, energy, and recovery within just a couple of weeks. People who were previously deficient often report reduced fatigue, better performance during exercise, and less soreness after physical activity. For older adults or those recovering from injury, the right dose can prevent rapid muscle loss during periods of immobility, allowing them to maintain more functional strength as they heal. Over time, steady supplementation helps ensure that every gram of protein consumed and every workout performed produces a greater return on effort, because the internal nutrient environment is primed for repair and growth. This precision matters not just for athletes or people seeking better fitness, but also for anyone who wants to protect themselves against the natural decline in muscle quality that comes with age. Muscle preservation is not simply about doing more resistance training or eating more protein. It's about creating the right biological conditions so your muscles can respond to those efforts. Getting the dosage of these vitamins correct is the cornerstone of that process, ensuring that the signaling pathways responsible for muscle repair are fully engaged and not limited by hidden nutrient deficiencies. When resistance training, adequate protein intake, and high-quality sleep are added to proper vitamin D3 and K2 supplementation, the benefits multiply because each factor works through different but complementary mechanisms. Resistance training provides the mechanical signal your muscles need to stay active and grow. When you perform exercises that challenge your muscles, even if it's just with body weight or light weights, you activate motor neurons that stimulate muscle fibers to contract, sending a clear message to your body that these tissues are necessary. This signal triggers the release of anabolic hormones and growth factors. But for the repair process to work efficiently, your muscles must have the raw materials and cellular environment to rebuild. That is where vitamin D3 and K2 provide a foundational advantage. They ensure the internal machinery of your muscle cells is ready to use those signals to make new, stronger fibers rather than letting existing fibers weaken. Protein intake supplies the amino acids needed for this rebuilding process. When you consume adequate protein, typically 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day, your body has the building blocks to synthesize new muscle tissue. However, protein alone is not enough if your muscle cells are unable to efficiently carry out protein synthesis due to nutrient deficiencies or poor signaling. By correcting vitamin D3 and K2 levels, the amino acids you eat are directed more effectively toward muscle repair rather than being wasted or diverted to other tissues. This combination allows you to get more muscle building value out of every meal, even if your protein intake is already good. Sleep adds another critical piece to this puzzle. During deep sleep, your body produces pulses of growth hormone and activates recovery pathways that repair not only muscle but also tendons, ligaments, and even the nervous system connections that control movement. Without sufficient high-quality sleep, these recovery processes are disrupted no matter how much you train or how well you eat. Vitamin D3 is known to play a role in regulating circadian rhythm and sleep quality, while K2 supports overall metabolic health, making it easier to reach restorative sleep stages. When your sleep improves, your hormone environment becomes more favorable for preserving and building muscle. Together, these elements create a synergistic effect. Resistance training provides the signal, protein provides the raw material, sleep provides the recovery window, and vitamins D3 and K2 optimize the internal conditions, so all of these efforts pay off. That means faster gains in strength, better endurance, improved coordination, and a much lower risk of muscle loss during periods of stress or inactivity. People who combine these strategies often notice not only physical changes such as increased muscle tone and strength, but also improved energy levels, sharper focus, and greater resilience to fatigue. This integration is particularly important for older adults or anyone facing health challenges because their muscles are often less responsive to training and nutrition alone. By ensuring the nutrient signaling pathways are functioning properly with D3 and K2, even light exercise becomes more effective at maintaining muscle mass and function. Younger individuals benefit as well because their performance and recovery improve, allowing them to train harder without overtraining or injury. Over time, this multi-pronged approach doesn't just slow muscle decline, it actively builds a stronger, healthier, more metabolically active body. It creates a feedback loop where every positive habit supports the others, leading to consistent progress rather than frustrating plateaus.